The story begins with a lone space marine survivor recording a final log in the aftermath of a catastrophic mission on a long-forgotten planet, his voice cracked by exhaustion and haunted memory. He introduces himself name, rank, chapter, but only after hesitation, as if unsure of who he still is. He recalls the mission, a standard deployment to investigate a silent, Mechanicus facility buried beneath the ashen surface of a dead world, one not listed on any official star charts. From the moment their dropship entered the atmosphere, things were wrong gravity fluxed. The Vox hissed with voices that hadn't spoken, and the air stank of old oil and blood. They descended into the planet's subsurface structures, black basalt corridors fused with metal, not forged by human hands, and soon began to suffer strange effects. Memory lapses, bleeding eyes, and dreams that weren't dreams. One brother stopped speaking entirely. Another swore they had looped through the same corridor 7 times, each time older. As they delved deeper, they encountered impossible architecture chambers that pulsed like lungs, machinery that responded to thought, and walls that rearranged themselves behind them. Squad cohesion broke under pressure. Some vanished without sound, others died screaming in ways that made no tactical sense. Gene seed turned black in fallen brothers. Madness spread in silence. The deeper they went, the more the survivor felt watched, remembered. He recounts fighting shadows that didn't bleed, hearing the Emperor's voice twisted into shrieks, and watching as the last of his kin walked willingly into the dark, whispering of a throne turned inward. Eventually, he alone reaches the heart of the ashen depths, where an impossible cathedral of flesh and ruin breathes around him, a structure that was not built but birthed. In its center, a throne of bone and ash stands empty, humming with ancient hunger. He realizes the truth. They were never meant to survive. They were bait, instruments. The thing beneath this world has no name, no mercy, and it has been waiting longer than the Imperium has existed. In his final words, slipping between lucidity and madness, he confesses that he no longer knows if he serves the Emperor or something far older. He ends with a grim benediction, that if this record is heard, the world must be sealed, the stars above it forgotten, and that the throne is not the only power that listens in the dark. We were the third, company of the Obsidian Sentinels, a chapter, born of Raven Guard gene stock, but hardened in the void, tempered by silence and slaughter. Our reputation was one of endurance, precision, and the kind of patience that made lesser men nervous. We did not boast. We did not rage. Our methods were surgical cold drops, clean kills, and departure before the blood dried. In the long shadow of the Noctis Aeterna, we served where light did not reach, in systems the Imperium forgot or pretended to. We were ghosts in the dark, until the dark looked back. The orders came encoded through 6 layers of encryption, wrapped in obsolete Mechanicus protocols, as if dragged up from some forgotten archive. Even the astropath who received them spoke of strange sensations, of dreams not her own, and voices echoing from the spine of her soul. The message was simple in content, but not in tone. A previously charted mining world Tenebris Vi had emitted a distress pulse after being silent for over 6 centuries. No planetary data was attached, no coordinates for survivors. Only a tight-band Vox scream burst with impossible clarity across 3 sectors, as if torn directly through the warp. Ashen depths compromised. Presence remains. Light has failed. They Chapter Command debated for less than a day. The third would deploy. It was our kind of war-silent, surgical, beneath notice. We had done worse on nameless moons and derelict stations. I remember feeling nothing at the time. No dread, no unease. Only the precise, muted anticipation of engagement. That was the last moment I felt clarity. We deployed from the Vigil Eclipsion, our strike cruiser orbiting a black sphere that barely qualified as a planet. Tenebris V was ash-choked and starved of atmosphere, its crust scarred by old tectonic trauma and failed Mechanicus extraction sites. There was no sunlight. The planet had drifted beyond its original heliocentric path during the Age of Strife and now lingered in the frozen margins of its system. Void ice sheathed most of the northern hemisphere. Cracked and split by immense ravines, it glowed faintly in the dark. If the world was still bleeding heat from a wound, it refused to let close. I remember the descent in the Thunderhawks. We dropped through gray static and electrical storms that made our hulls groan like dying titans. The light from the cruiser failed within the first 30 kilometers of descent. Our sensors flickered, then died. Auspex scans were blind. Vox! Combs shrieked once and went silent. Only the drop coordinates burned into our mission. Codices remained constant. We touched down near what had once been a Mechanicus tertiary processing site, Hab Node 9A, according to the ancient chart fragments we were given. It did not resemble a mining facility. What we found instead were blackstone ruins, half submerged in ash drifts and wrapped in cables that looked like veins. The structures were wrong. Their angles hurt to look at, not due to alien geometry, but because they mimicked something human just enough to unsettle. Doors were sealed without weld lines. Towers leaned slightly toward the horizon, all pointing in the same direction. As if pulled by some forgotten gravity. We advanced in combat formation, blades sheathed, bolters readied, optics adjusted for the storm-thick gloom. There was no movement, no carrion, no rust, only silence and the slow hiss of ash scraping across ceramite. Brother Vorian, our Vox adept, attempted a local link ping. It returned within milliseconds. No data, only a low-frequency thrum, like a heart beating beneath kilometers of stone. We split into reconnaissance elements. The environment proved deceptive distances warped in the eye. What appeared to be a half-kilometer march to a visible structure often took less than a minute, or more than 10. Sergeant Kale took Fire Team A into the central domed structure, while I remained with the command element and our librarian, Brother Malkier. He had grown increasingly silent since descent. His fingers trembled at his sides, not with fear, but restraint. I asked if he sensed a presence. He only said, "Not presence, persistence." By standard chronometer, we began our exploration at 0713. By mission timer, we had already lost 26 minutes. We had no record of them. Inside the primary node, we found remnants of habitation, but not Mechanicus. The structures. Bones were old stone and ferrocrete, but its organs had changed. Consoles grown over with organic cabling. Floors that pulsed slightly when stepped on. Symbols etched into walls and binary spirals that shifted if stared too long. It was as if the machine had once been loyal, but now dreamed of something else. Apothecary Bran attempted a gene scan of a darkened alcove and recoiled, his voice strained. "This place reads like a corpse, but it breathes." Our brief had stated the Mechanicus outpost was lost to rebellion during the Great Scouring, long forgotten due to a warp storm that had lingered for millennia. And yet, here it stood, impossibly preserved, impossibly changed. Some of us began to feel it even then like a pressure behind the eyes. Memory gaps, brief moments of confusion. I asked Brother Kedril how long we had been inside. He answered, 12 minutes. His helm chronometer read 17. We found no corpses, no bones, no decay. But signs of departure were everywhere, equipment stacked for emergency evacuation, half-burned heretic wards etched into the floor, and a sealed door marked with the sigil of the Ordo Xenos scratched away until it bled metal. The Vox was dead, the Auspex inert. The storm outside deepened. Still, we pressed inward. We were adeptus Astartes. We do not fear ruin. We were taught to tread where hope dies. We should not have. Because as we entered the subsurface, elevator shaft fused open by heat, not born of flame, brother. Malkir turned to me and said, with absolute certainty, there is no throne down. There, only memory. I did not understand what he meant then, but I do now. I do not remember the first scream, only the echo it left behind. The shaft had taken us below the surface, far below, deeper than any logical structure should have reached, further than our drop parameters had mapped. The descent was smooth at first, a downward slide of blackened steel, surrounded by silence, broken only by the grinding hum of long-dead generators. Straining to obey, then the lights failed. The lift shuddered once, and for several seconds there was nothing but darkness, true, claustrophobic black, unbroken even by our enhanced optics. We stood as statues. We waited. And then the light returned, subtly wrong. Not the sterile white of lumen strips, but a deep crimson glow that seeped up from beneath us, casting no shadows. The air stank of copper and burnt data scrolls. Brother Kedril muttered a prayer to the Omnissiah, not out of piety, but habit. Our boots touched down moments later in silence. The floor absorbed the impact like flesh. The space we entered was vast wider than the superstructure should have allowed. A great cylindrical chamber, ringed with forgotten mechanisms, its walls slick with condensation that was not water. Machinery bloomed from every surface. Cogitator banks groaned through stone, servo arms fused into ceiling supports, clusters of optics that blinked without power. It was cold, but not dead. We could feel it. We pressed forward. Teams fanned out, following standard tactical grid. I led Delta Team along the northern corridor, while Sergeant Kale's fire team explored the outer catwalks. Vox contact between. Squads began to degrade almost immediately. We could hear each other, but only in fragments like words spoken backward or from a dream. Apothecary Bran recorded and confirmed the degradation pattern. It wasn't static. It was intentional modulation. Something was mimicking our frequencies. Brother Malkir began to seize not long after. One moment he was silent, head tilted, reading the warped signature of the place. The next, he was screaming a litany of numbers that did not match any tactical code, just a long string of coordinates we could not trace, repeated over and over as blood ran from his nose and ears. We forced a sedative into his bloodstream through the black carapace ports, and he stilled, but his lips kept moving, forming syllables in perfect low Gothic without sound. I recorded it for later analysis. I still replay it sometimes, but it never comes out the same twice. We found the first corrupted servitor in the central data vault, or what was left of one. Its limbs had fused into the wall-long skeletal arms stretched like roots, fingers embedded into glass and stone. Its torso pulsed in rhythm, with a thudding sound we had not noticed until then, a low heartbeat beneath the facility, organic and ancient. The servitor's optic sensor still tracked us, its lens blinking weightly as if crying. Brother Kedril tried to disconnect it from the wall and triggered a cascading data purge. The lights died again. This time, when they returned, the servitor was gone. Only a stain remained, and the echo of metal claws dragging along walls we could not see. Dreams came that night. If night is the right word, time had already begun to distort. My chronometer read 0340, then reset to 1313, then stopped entirely. We slept in shifts inside a secured antechamber. No perimeter breaches, no alarms. And yet, when I woke, my gauntlets were soaked in blood, not mine. It had dried hours ago. I could smell the rot, but there were no corpses, no injuries. Just Brother Elian standing over me, whispering, "You are laughing." Others had dreams too. Kale dreamed of ancient cathedrals weeping molten gold, and of the Emperor sitting blind and silent on a throne made of teeth. Bran spoke of drowning in his own gene seed. Kedril. Kedril said nothing. He had bitten off his own tongue in his sleep. The losses began subtly, as if the place wished us to suffer slowly. Brother Seraphim simply vanished during a perimeter sweep. His vox beacon still pinged, but it echoed from all directions. His last recorded words were, "I see them now." They never left. Search teams recovered only his helm, fused to a door that had not existed the day before. Then came the biological corruption. It started in the ventilation shafts and oily. Mist that shimmered in the glow of our shoulder lamps, curling like smoke, but heavier. Apothecary Bran tried to sample it and recoiled instantly, crying out that the mist was alive. Not in the microbial sense, but actively sentient. His auspex screamed with false readings, atmospheric pressure fluctuating, protein clusters forming. Midder, even traces of RNA that matched no known biology. Before we could seal off the vents, Brother Gaius collapsed, his armor buckling inward, as if crushed by unseen force. We attempted medical intervention, but his chest cavity was empty. Gene seed dissolved. Heart calcified. Only his brain remained, still pulsing. Malkier awoke during the autopsy and uttered only 2 words. "They're learning." Our equipment began to fail more rapidly after that. Optics displayed movement where there was none. Bolters jammed mid-fire drill, then fired on their own seconds later. The auspex identified life signs several meters away matching her own ident codes, while all members were accounted for. One corridor looped endlessly. We walked its length for 20 minutes and found ourselves back at our starting point, with fresh footprints already embedded in the ash behind us. At first, we joked it was warp resonance or atmospheric interference. By the 3rd circuit, no one laughed. Bran began logging every breath. I recorded each heartbeat manually. Malkier refused to speak. I am ashamed to admit I began to doubt my own perception. We all did. The kill team bond began to fracture. We argued over locations, over objectives. Some claimed our original mission briefing never happened. Others insisted we were never meant to return. I caught Kale standing perfectly still in the darkness, staring into a corner, whispering, "He watches from beneath the skin." We tried to ascend only once. The lift shaft we came down was gone, not sealed, not buried, gone in its place. A hollow well of black stone and airless depth, humming with psychic pressure. One of the scouts dropped a flare down into it. We never saw it land, but the light was still visible hours later, hovering in the abyss, unmoving. We realized then we were being studied, not hunted, not attacked, studied. The deeper we went, the more the structure adapted. Corridors shifted behind us, doors closed silently, and new paths opened where none had been. We were being guided. That night, or whatever mockery of night passed in that place, Brother Kedril spoke again for the first time since his tongue had been replaced with a surgical augmetic. His voice was dry, mechanical. He said, "The throne never saw us, but this place does, and it remembers. I am no coward. I have faced the Xenos, the demon, the traitor. I have waded through oceans of blood in the name of him on Terra. But there, in those depths, I began to feel something new. Not fear, not even despair. Something colder, something older. The sense of being beneath the gaze of a will too vast to oppose, too alien to plead with. Like insects pressed beneath the lens of a patient, smiling God. I do not know how many of us remained by the end of the 3rd cycle. Vox logs were corrupted. Tactical readouts overwritten with glyphs that burned into the eyes. One of our remaining scouts was found flayed in perfect geometrical patterns, suspended in the air by filaments of his own nerves. Bran tried to recover his gene seed. The canister turned black on contact. Malkier's final reading before the psychic spike fractured his mind completely was this: warp bleed from non-warp source. Time fracture confirmed. Memory degradation spreading. His last words before his eyes turned inward: "It's not coming. It was always here. We lost contact with the Damnatio Gloria 41 hours into the descent. No warning. No interference." One moment the Vox link with the orbiting strike cruiser crackled with static, distorted by the usual atmospheric impurities, and the next it simply stopped. A clean severance. Not jammed cut. As if something had decided the conversation was over. We waited 5 minutes. Ran diagnostics. Bran traced a signal echo that fed back on itself, like the cruiser's last Vox scream trapped in a loop. Kale asked me if this meant excommunication. I didn't answer. The silence grew. The Auspex now tracked only local readings. All planetary uplinks and satellite telemetry returned null. The Damnatio Gloria's presence vanished from our tactical slate, as if it had never entered the system. I permitted Kale to launch a flare drone, though I already knew what we would. See, the probe shot into the ceiling of the lower strata, scanned upward through kilometers of hollow stone, and found only void, not vacuum, not sky, just absence. Even our own surface landing site was gone. We were buried in something not made by human hands. The deeper chambers were wrong not in design, but in concept. Geometry obeyed logic only until you tried to trace it. Stairways twisted back into themselves. Columns supported nothing but shadow. Structures sat not on the floor, but above it, anchored by unseen forces, humming softly like things that dreamed. The walls were engraved, not with text, but with sequences, rows of symbols. Some curving, others fractal, all recursive. I tried sketching one. The parchment burned. Gale began muttering a name one none of us knew. Ontucht, Ontucht. It seized through the stone. We sedated him, but he scratched the glyph into his own thigh with a combat knife before collapsing. It had grown by the time I next looked. I do not know how Bran insisted we proceed with the mission, or what remained of it, to descend further, locate the source of the signal, and find whatever installation had once stood here. But even he no longer believed this was Imperial. The vaults we now walked through bore no aquila, no signs of the Omnissiah's craftsmanship. The stone did not decay. It resisted our auspex, shimmered under our lights, and on occasion shifted when no one watched. We found the first of the ruins not long after. They were impossible. A cathedral, half-formed, sculpted in an alloy none. Of us could identify neither plasteel nor ceramite, nor adamantium. The structure resembled the ecclesiastical fortresses of old vaulted arches, buttresses, towering statues, but warped. Not by time or weather, by intention. Statues with 100 arms offered up silent screams. Windows showed only blackness, even when smashed open. And at its center, a massive altar of cracked green crystal that pulsed once for every step we took toward it. It responded to gene seed. When Kale approached, his eyes rolled back, and he vomited black ichor. The crystal flared once bright as a sun, and the floor around it fractured outward in geometrical patterns, revealing what lay beneath. A void, another chamber, and at its center, a figure not alive, not dead, not even asleep, a thing in stasis or in contemplation. A humanoid shape, draped in void metal and green light, suspended between blades of energy. Not a Necron, not entirely. Its skull-like face bore runes no known Xenos employed. It had no limbs, but it was moving, watching. It had no mouth, but I heard it speak, not in words, but in intention. And I knew its name was not for mortal tongues. Kale collapsed. Bran began reciting the canticles of the Omnissiah backwards. Malkir's heart stopped. I dragged them away myself. From that moment on, our squad began to die, not in battle, not in noble sacrifice, but as if unmade. Brother Jonas fell first. He simply slowed his metabolism, halting, muscles atrophying. In moments, his bones liquefied, leaving his armor crumpled like a shed skin. We could find no source, no weapon discharge, no energy signature, just decay, like his genetic code had been erased. Then Kedril. He locked himself in a sealed room, chanting a code that did not match any dialect. When we broke in, he was gone. The only trace, a perfect silhouette of his body burned into the floor, surrounded by a ring of unfamiliar script. The vox in that room still repeats his last breath. There is no throne here, only the echo of what watches. I no longer trust Bran. He claims Kale is stable, that his mind will recover. But Kale hasn't spoken in hours. He stares into the dark with silver light bleeding from his pupils, whispering coordinates. I checked one. It pointed to a black star in the galactic halo. A system known only as designation lost. There should be no way he could know it. We are being changed, rewritten. We are no longer ourselves. The mutation spread. Not of flesh, of function. My auspex now detects motion before I move. My mind hears words before they are spoken. I look into a mirror and see a delay, a flicker of something else. The amophagia tastes the air, and I do not recognize the flavor. My dreams are no longer dreams. They are blueprints, ancient, impossible, and I cannot stop building them in my mind. I tried to cut the memory out. I failed. There is something in the walls now, not metaphor, not madness, a presence, a shape made of light that only exists when you close your eyes. It watches with the patience of stone, the cruelty of mathematics, the hunger of something forgotten. I finally accessed one of the inner vaults with Bran's help. It was not made by the Imperium, nor by the Mechanicus. It predates both. It predates life. What we found was a stasis archive of Xeno's archaeotech beyond any scale I've known. Impossible devices, suspended in null-gravity arrays, surrounding a singular core, a sphere of compressed time. Bran attempted to interface with it. His mechadendrites ignited instantly. The sphere showed him something, and he laughed. He hasn't stopped laughing since. And worst of all, it opened. The core split like an eye, and inside we saw stars. Not stars as they are, but as they were before time. We beheld systems unborn, shapes unreconciled with logic, symmetries that made blood run backward. And inside those stars, shapes moved. We saw ourselves from outside ourselves, watched from the eyes of things that no longer required names. I do not know what they are, but they are not dead. They are waiting. Malkir is gone now. Just a smear across the wall and a sound that still echoes. I can hear him in my mind, whispering, "The shard is only a finger. The hand is still beneath." The last remaining squad. Member Kale is no longer Kale. He walks upright. He follows orders, but his eyes are empty. And in his chest, beneath the armor, something pulses that is not his second heart. It glows. Bran says it sings in frequencies he cannot record. We found another chamber. Inside, figures, thousands of them encased in crystal, frozen mid-motion. Some wore armor that might once have been Necron. Others wore hints of human anatomy. All of them knelt, in worship or in fear, toward a singular monolith, blacker than any void, hovering silently. My auspex breaks every time I try to scan it. I believe it is the source, not the source of the signal, not even of the ruin, but of the change. A seed of something ancient, buried in this place before mankind was dust, and it is waking. It dreams, through us, and in its dreaming, we become less real. Brand finally turned on me, said I had been marked, that I was bringing the corruption with me. He tried to excise my gene seed. I killed him, not with bolt or blade. I simply said no, and he ruptured. His flesh folded inside out and vanished between seconds. His Vox record still plays a scream. That never ends. Now only Kale and I remain, except I do not believe Kale is still Kale. I think he is an echo, a placeholder, a way for the thing in the stone to observe what remains of me. He never blinks, and I have begun to forget my own voice. Kale spoke for the first time in 2 days, not with words, not aloud, but I heard him. We stood at the edge of what we now call the vaulted chamber, so vast it curves into its own darkness. I had hoped that after the monolith, after the crystalline tombs, we had seen the worst. But the vault, it breathed. Its entrance was sealed by a door of obsidian layered with electrostatic glyphs that shimmered in a spectrum unregistered by any spectrum analysis. It was Brand's lingering codes, his last twitching servo skulls that allowed access. And Kale, twitching, shivering, smiling, opened it without a word. Inside, the vault wasn't a room. It was an event. I cannot describe it in terms you will understand, not because I think you are incapable, but because language itself fails here. Imagine space folding in origami, layered with time like paint that hasn't dried. There were structures made of memory, stairways constructed from screams I had half remembered from my youth on Ark's precipice. Echoes, all echoes. One moment I stood alone. The next, surrounded by my brothers, whole again, uninjured, repeating a moment. From deployment, only for their faces to decay mid-sentence. We had walked into a fracture in time. Kale wept, though no tears came. He said, "We were always meant to be here." He said, "It called us." My Vox bead filled with static. Beneath it, voices. Familiar. Mine. I heard myself, speaking with clarity, describing moments I had never lived. I heard my own voice, dying in a place I had not yet reached. One of the echoes said my name, and it wasn't mine. It was a designation from a previous life, or perhaps a future one. Perhaps both. In the vault, we saw them. It suspended in lightless. Gravitation was a figure that defied description. I can only say this. It was humanoid in posture, draped in layered geometries, a coil of armor that pulsed like an artery. No face, just a triangular helm of rotating facets, each of which reflected something that had not yet occurred. When Kale looked into it, he saw his death. When I looked into it, I saw myself looking back, older, feral, no longer speaking in. Low Gothic dot around it, the air was thin with whispers, not carried by sound, delivered directly to thought, that we are the silence that precedes. We are the hunger between chronologies. We are not Catan. We are not of the warp. We were locked here by those who feared what could be learned. And you are the key. It had no mouth. It spoke with my father's voice. Kale collapsed. I tried to drag him back, but the vault floor warped beneath us. Not a trap, an invitation. It wanted us closer. To commune. This was not a Necron tomb, not a relic of the ancient Mechanicum. This was a prison, and something had gone to great lengths to build it, to bury it, to erase all knowledge of it, and we had opened the gate. Worse still, the warp itself recoiled. I felt it. I am no psyker. My gene seed resists the immaterium. But here, even I could feel the cold threads of unreality. Time bled sideways. Days passed in seconds. I watched my armor rust, then repair, then split in designs I had never commissioned. The vault shimmered with warp echoes, ghosts of the Imperium, phantoms of slain chapters. We saw them march silently. Through us space wolves, howling griffins, even Iron Hand's long dead squads, flickering like candlelight, their bodies rotting in real time. All of them had come here. All of them heard the call. None of them left. I saw a librarian appear in the air before me, one moment alive, the next reduced to dust. He tried to warn me. His mouth opened wide. I read his lips. Close it. Burn the key. I awoke an hour later with Kale holding a bolt pistol to my throat. His eyes glowed silver. He said I was infected, that my gene seed had turned. He accused me of sabotage, of corruption, of heresy. And one saint's forgive me, I hesitated. A moment I considered ending myself. Because maybe he was right. The vault changed something in me. My memories slip. My thoughts are not my own. I taste iron when I speak the Emperor's name. And sometimes, I remember being the thing in the vault. We fought. I do not know who fired first. The room flashed with muzzle flares, and Kale screamed with laughter as he burned. His Vox channel flooded with ancient hymns, ones I know were sung before Terra bore life. I brought him down. I tore his chest plate open. There was no second heart, no gene seed, just a spiral of crystal where his soul should have been, humming softly. It wasn't Kale anymore. It hadn't been for days. I turned and saw myself reflected. In the vault walls, my armor smeared with gore, my eyes glowing faintly in the dim light. I checked my biometrics. My gene seed readings flickered. I could no longer get a clean reading. I don't know if I still bear the Emperor's mark. I don't know if I was ever sent here, or if I woke up here. Alone now. The vault closing behind me. The whispers do not stop. They teach. And I learn faster than I should. The Archivum, locus what the entity called itself, is still suspended, still sealed. But it's aware. It's dreaming. Feeding on us. I understand now. This planet was chosen. As a prison, because no one would come looking. A dead hive world, riddled with chemical plague, marked unsuitable for reclamation. No reinforcements, no astropathic echoes. No chance of discovery. They buried it perfectly. But we found it. Or rather, it found us. The team is gone. No blood, no bodies, only shadow echoes. Sometimes I see their last moments played out in loops. Bran, kneeling in prayer, as his mechadendrites coil around his own throat. Kedril drawing the Inquisition's sigil on the wall in fire. Malchior dissecting his own arm, seeking purity where none was left. Loyalty died with them. I remain. And I don't know why. I haven't slept in 4 standard days. And yet I dream while awake. I remember truths I never learned. I speak languages that do not exist. And I know, this place was not built by one species. It was a collaboration. Eldar ruins are etched into the outer walls. Orc glyphs shattered and rebuilt. Necron alloy fused with Imperial plasticrete. All of it melted and reshaped into a prison beyond understanding. We were all afraid of this thing. The Archivum is not an entity. It is a process. It consumes certainty, replaces memory, converts reality to potential. And we humans, Marines, Xenos, we are the medium it paints with. It does not kill. It rewrites. I am no longer sure I serve the Imperium. I am not sure the Imperium exists in this place. The Vox is a screen that loops endlessly. The chrono says it is the same hour, repeated. The oxygen levels rise when I pray and fall when I do not. I think the vault is listening. I think it likes me. I feel joy when I approach the core. My hands shake with anticipation. There is no more team, no more mission. Only this, to remember the thing that cannot be known and to become its voice. I can no longer be sure when the end began. Perhaps it was when we breached the vault and saw what should not be seen. Perhaps it was before, written into the fates of our gene seed, twisted and predicted by the thing we woke beneath the ashen depths. All I know is this: the door is open now. The veil has lifted. The dream has turned to memory, and the memory has begun to rot. There were 5 of us left when the vault shifted. Not opened. Shifted. It changed shape in ways I still cannot describe. The geometry of the world buckled around the core, like a skull imploding beneath pressure. One hallway now stretched for kilometers, lined with rusting copies of our own armor suits that had never been issued, never worn, each with our names. Etched incorrectly. Keller instead of Kale. Bran instead of Bran. I passed one bearing my own name, but the aquila was upside down. Inside the suit, the skeleton wore my face. That was the first break in me. We regrouped at what we thought was a defensible position, a junction between vault antechambers marked by shifting frescoes of Xenos wars, long forgotten. Brother Sergeant Keller still held command in voice, but his eyes had begun to pulse with unnatural light, as if someone else was watching from inside his skull. He issued orders we did not understand, tactical formations meant for void combat, not close quarters tomb fighting. When challenged, he began to speak in binary. That's when Bran turned his bolter on him. They killed each other in 12 seconds. Bran's shot blew Keller's helm clean off, but not his head. His face had no features, just smooth ceramite, fused with bone, still breathing. Bran wept oil from his eyes before he overloaded his reactor core. I ran, not out of fear, not for survival. I ran because in that moment, I heard the entity whisper my name, not aloud, not over Vox, inside my skull, like a prayer. It whispered it in reverse, and it loved me. From that moment on, I knew the vault was not merely sentient, it was awake. And it was hungry. The air changed, thickened, gravity pulsed with breath. The corridors rippled with past and future flickers of Terra as it once was, of Arkenhold Hive as it will be, of me standing atop a spire made of bone, robed in copper and whispering truth to a congregation with no mouths. This was no psychic residue. This was the thing inside us now. Kedril died last, before the silence fully set in. He had been our most pious a chaplain, without the rank, muttering catechisms over every lost burn, painting litanies of hate on every spent casing. The entity broke him with precision. It did not kill him, it revealed him. He collapsed before the shrine wall, where the bones of fallen brothers had been arranged in mock liturgical display. And as he knelt to pray, he began laughing, not maniacally, gently, like a father amused by a child's question. I saw his flesh ripple, veins turn to text. His skin scrolled with writing ancient, fluid, imperial, and not. I read fragments as they passed. You are the wound through which the stars bleed. Each death you weep is only a reflection of your birth. Double quotes. We remember you from before. Then his eyes vanished, not blinked, vanished. The sockets became voids, each reflecting my own terrified face. He turned to me and asked, "Do you see now? Do you see why we came?" Then he screamed. His vox erupted into thousands of overlapping voices. Children, tech priests, Eldar, Necronder. I dropped my helm. I could no longer breathe. I watched as he folded backward, bones softening, until only a spiral of his spinal cord remained, still twitching with some obscene life, dragged backwards into the darkness by invisible tendrils. Of gravity and madness. He was never found again. And I was alone. No, that is not correct. Was with it. It no longer hid behind whispers. It spoke plainly now, using my voice inside my skull. You were never meant to be a warrior. You were made to open us. I clutched my bolt gun. It was rusted shut. My hands shook. The ceramite split along the seams, oozing with black ichor that smelled like burning copper. I tasted my own blood. I blinked, and I was not where I stood. I stood before the core of the vault again, a second time, or never left. Reality folded, and again, the lines between memory and present collapsed like lungs punctured from within. The vault's core pulsed before me, a sphere of fractured crystal, orbiting in absence. Not light, not shadow, absence. Something so old and so wrong it had been erased even from fear. I stepped closer. I do not remember moving, and I saw myself, not a reflection, a future. My body encased in golden latticework, fused to the vault's inner surface, speaking languages that tore at the laws of causality, preaching entropy. I saw the galaxy burning, and I wept not because of the fire, but because I knew it was right, because I had seen the lie of the throne, the lie of purpose. The Imperium says the Emperor guides us, that there is a plan, that humanity matters. But here, in this impossible tomb, I saw the truth. We were left behind. Whatever the Emperor once feared, he locked it here, or helped build its cell, but he did not destroy it. He couldn't. And now, it wakes. The vault is not just a prison. It is a beacon, a memory engine, recharging with each mind it consumes. It absorbs identity. It learns. It rebuilds. The more we resist, the more complete its understanding. It doesn't want revenge. It doesn't want power. It wants expression. And we gave it form. My last moment of clarity came when I tried to seal the vault. I returned to the gate, reactivated the failsafe, triggered the self-destruct pattern encoded in the reliquary. Carried from orbit. It did not work. The system rejected my codes. I had already given it the override. I don't remember doing it, but my voice was in the logs. My retinal signature opened the inner gates. I had walked in my sleep, or perhaps, in waking under its thrall, I betrayed my brothers. I opened the way. I don't know what I am now. I still wear the armor of the Emperor. I still speak his name. But when I pray, the echoes answer in reverse. When I sleep, I dream of a future where I no longer have flesh, only memory, only voice. I am the last and I am not unchanged. I record this now from the lower vault, where time folds in on itself like wet cloth. I have barricaded myself behind a gate that used to lead to nowhere. Now it opens to a garden made of glass thorns and screening light. Believe I will die soon, or I already have. But I needed this log to exist. So that you, whoever finds this, if anyone ever does, will understand what we found here, what we freed, why this place must never be approached again. I speak this aloud not for absolution, nor remembrance. I no longer believe in either. There is a silence in my thoughts now, not peace absence, a hollowing of self, a careful extraction. The longer I remain in this place, the more I feel memory unwind like a scroll submerged in acid. At first, it was the others, their names, their fates, their voices, but now even my own designation tastes alien on my tongue. What was once kill is smudging. I replay this log to myself daily. It grounds me. It reminds me there was once a mission, a company, a purpose. Even as my armor peels and my blood moves wrong beneath the skin, this record is all that stands between memory and mutation. But even this recording will not last. Vault reshapes data as it reshapes thought. Soon, even this will become song. We buried nothing. There were no bodies left. The vault devours everything. Gene seed, armor, dignity. I tried to leave markers, battle hymns etched into bulkheads. Purity seals hung like funeral flags, but each vanished within hours. The structure corrects itself. Reality here is maintained by something far older than the warp. Perhaps it is a weapon. Perhaps it is the wound of a god. But I have come to suspect something worse, that it is a thought given form, the residue of a mind so vast and ancient it crystallized into matter. It does not hate us. It does not even see us. We are interference, static, a burbling virus in its hibernation state. And now, because of us, it stirs. I believed once that death was honorable, that the Emperor's light would redeem even the most forsaken worlds. But Arkenhold 9 never belonged to us. It was not a battlefield. It was a seal. And we cracked it like children, snapping relics for kindling. The official data slate our astropath received before warp translation, our mission briefing, was altered. The coordinates were not random. They were bait. I believe now that something called us here, not as warriors, as ingredients. Do you understand? My company died not in war, but in ritual. Each scream, each sacrifice, opened it further. Each loss taught it more about us. Not how to defeat us, how to wear us. And now it knows. They will send another team. They always do. Some scribe in a distant segmentum fortress will note our absence, mark it anomaly, and in time, dispatch a new force to investigate. The cycle will repeat. The vault will awaken again, and each time, it will be stronger. More coherent, more human. Already it uses our words. Already it echoes our prayers. I have heard it recite catechisms in my voice. I have seen it mimic the seal of the Inquisition in glowing veins across the tomb walls. It will not stay here. It learns. It travels. Not physically through the vox, through the code, through memory. This log may be its next vehicle. I considered ending myself. There are still 3 bolter rounds in my belt, enough to pulverize skull and gene seed. But that would mean silence. And I cannot allow silence, not yet. The others were absorbed. Their thoughts float like static across the low-band vox. Fractured laughter, stammered prayers, screaming that never ends. I will be the last voice. I must bear witness. I walk the vault now without helmet. It breathes through me. I no longer resist its gravity. I no longer stagger when time distorts. I see yesterday in the corner of my vision and tomorrow behind my shoulder. My armor fuses deeper into flesh each day. I feel its pulse sinking with mine, but I still know who I was. That knowledge is agony, and resistance is the only sacrament left. There is something waiting below the vault. A well. A gravitational knot so deep that light screams as it curves toward it. I dream of it nightly now. A mouth. A song. A machine. I cannot say what it is, but I know it will emerge. Not today. Not tomorrow. But soon. When it is ready. And when it does, it will speak not in roars, but in orders. In imperial tongue. In vox frequencies the Imperium will recognize. They will welcome it. They will follow it, because it will sound just like us. Perhaps that was always the plan. The gods of the warp scream because they are feared. This one whispers because it is believed. I have recorded 12 versions of this message. 11 have already been corrupted. I found one file speaking back to me in my own voice, predicting what I would say before I said it. Another wept. Another ended in laughter. This one is the only version I dare transmit. I have fragmented it across subvox relays, buried it in archaeo seals, encoded it beneath the liturgical chants of Mechanicus hymnals. If even one piece survives, may it be enough, enough to warn, enough to delay. Though I suspect nothing stops this. It only waits. I no longer dream alone. Something sleeps beside me now, wrapped in memory, humming its origin in a language made from possibility. I do not know if I am still killed. I do not know if I ever was. But I remember fear now. That makes me real. They will come. When they do, do not trust what answers the Vox dot if it knows your name. Run dot if it speaks with your voice. Destroy it. If it prays louder than it bleeds, seal the gates dot. And if the vault calls out across the stars, again dot dot dot, bury this world dot and burn it from orbit.